Are you ready to take the leap and buy your dream home, or maybe just buy your first home? The journey can be very overwhelming, but don't worry, we've got you covered. In this video, we're going to talk about the 10 essential steps to buying a home all the way from start to finish. From pre-approval to closing day, we're going to break down each step for you and give you all the information you need to make very good informed decisions, because that is what I'm all about. Information. Now you're going to discover things from pre-approval to working with a real estate agent, what to look for when viewing homes, and how to negotiate when you're ready to write that offer. So whether you are a very first-time buyer or a seasoned pro, in this video, I'd like to provide for you all of the tools and knowledge you need to make your home buying experience a success, because that is what we want. So sit back, relax, and let's get started on your path to home ownership. Okay, so tip number 1 is going to feel incredibly obvious, but you would be surprised how many people don't do this. Actually sitting down with a lender, a broker, your financial advisor, someone at your bank to get a pre-approval. Now, pre-approval is not a firm approval. That will come later, but this is going to set your parameters for really what your budget should be, what you can afford. It takes into consideration a lot of different factors like debt, income, credit history. It's a lot of information, and it is just incredibly important. And often, most seasoned real estate agents will not even take out a buyer to show them homes unless they are pre-approved, because we don't want you to get heartbroken and find a home that you love that you can't afford. And we also don't want to be using up all of our time looking at houses that are very unrealistic. So tip number 1, absolutely get in touch with your lender or a broker and get a pre-approval. Tip number 2 comes pretty early in the process, and that is finding a real estate agent that you connect with, somebody that makes you feel comfortable, somebody that you feel like you can have an open and honest conversation with. You're going to be working very closely together over these next few weeks, these next few months. You want to feel like you can trust them. They're going to put their trust in you. It's actually a very tight relationship, especially in the beginning stages. So you want to probably sit down and interview a few people. I know most people don't really do that. They just make a phone call to a listing agent or they Google something online. But honestly, you should be even interviewing a few agents. You want to make sure that you connect with them, that they understand you, that you understand them. And a lot of the times what I would recommend is sitting down and having a buyer's consultation. There's a lot of information to discuss, especially your wants, your needs, your budget, your deal breakers. And then your agent is going to want to know all of these things, because the more information they have, the better that they'll be suited to help you. Start interviewing agents and really, really look for somebody that you connect with, because we don't all mesh with everybody. So maybe someone that likes one kind of personality doesn't really like another. So look around. Tip number 3 is going to be a bit of a time saver. And I'm sure you've been doing it for months, if not years, before you're actually ready to purchase a home, is browsing at them online. Have your agent that you have chosen that you trust to set you up on an email list. You're going to want to have them send you properties that meet your specific criteria. That list is going to have everything that's available now. And if set up properly, it's going to show you all of the new listings that meet your criteria as they hit the market. So you're going to want to browse that list and really start to narrow it down. Maybe you only start with a specific budget and neighborhood. And then maybe some of the houses that you love are not showing up with this neighborhood. So maybe you change your parameters. But the best way to do that is essentially online first. So you can really sort of dial in what exactly you're looking for. Because when it's time to view properties, you really only want to be viewing a handful at a time. If you are in love with 40 properties, that is way too many. I mean, that would be great because you love everything, but that can also be really overwhelming for you and the agent. You're going to want to start to narrow that down. So when your feet hit the ground and you're looking at properties, you're really only looking at ones that can actually suit you and your family, which leads into tip number 4, viewing the houses in person. Yay! That is always everybody's favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. It's sadly or oddly the reason I got into real estate. I loved the house looking process when I was buying my own house. I just loved it. But it can be very overwhelming. It can be very exhausting. It can be a lot of information. So when I go out with my clients, I typically really only like to look at 5, 6, 7 properties at a time. There have been days where I have looked at 12, 13 properties And it just is a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot, but at the end of the day, you're confused. You can't remember what you saw. You can't remember what you liked about this one. Did this one have the good kitchen in the bad backyard, or did that one have the good kitchen in the bad backyard? It's a lot of information to process. I like to give my buyers like a little cheat sheet to take some notes on with the addresses that we're looking at. But keep in mind, it's going to be really exhausting. It doesn't sound exhausting, but trust me, it is. So when we hit the ground running, I'm going to show you 5 or 6 properties at a time so that we can keep the stress at bay and we can keep our ducks in a row. So number 5 in the process is writing the actual offer. Now this is also exciting, but it can be a little bit scary. And it's going to be where you're going to probably lean your heaviest on your agent kind of from here on out. Your agent is going to have access to all kinds of market stats, data, a lot of information that might not be public knowledge that will really help you craft a really good offer. So you're going to want to sit with your agent. Your agent will essentially want to price out the property that you love as if it was a new listing. That's what I do. I say, okay, you love this house. I'm going to price it right now as if I was going to list this house today. At what price would I put this as, given all of these factors? And then we're going to go over that together so that we are on the same page about what a realistic and fair offer will be. Because let's be honest, properties don't ever sell for like $100,000 below price. Rarely do they sell for $50,000 below price. Almost always in our market, especially in Fort McMurray, properties sell for 2 to 3% under fair market value or under list price. So this is going to be a very important discussion to have with your agent so that you all have realistic expectations going into the offer writing process. Number 6 in the process is actually understanding what is in the offer. A buyer needs to be very aware about some very key points in this offer, and they really need to understand exactly what they are attaching themselves to. Buyers need to understand some very key terms and some very key points in the contract. Now, these will be different for every single offer. So you're really going to want to sit down with your agent and ask them as many questions as you have. If you are going through some information and something doesn't make sense to you or something seems funny to you, their job is to explain this offer to you. As agents, we write offers every single day, all the time. It becomes second nature. And sometimes we forget what is second nature to us might be confusing to you. So ask a lot of questions because this is your offer. This is your name. This is going to be your contract that you are legally bound to. You really want to understand what's in that. Okay, number 7. So in this offer, we have a condition period. This is something that people don't understand sometimes when they're writing an offer, but let me explain. Part of the home buying process is once you actually write the offer, it's not all said and done there. There's a few other steps involved. Once you have your offer accepted, there's a condition period. Typically in our market and in Alberta, that is a 2-week period where the house is still showing for sale on the market. It shows as pending. And your duty as a buyer is to start to do all of your due diligence and in order to fulfill your conditions. So some typical conditions would be a finance condition, a home inspection condition, sometimes an appraisal condition. And in these 2 weeks, you are running around like a crazy person getting all your ducks in a row. So you're giving your contract to your lender so they can start the firm approval process. You are getting in touch with home inspectors, which your agent will help you with. In order to have a home inspection, you're potentially contacting the city, checking on permits. You're doing all of this due diligence. So when you write your offer, you're giving yourself a timeline to get that done. And now once that timeline approaches or arrives, it is your responsibility to either say, yes, I'm buying this house for sure, or no. So that leads me to my next point in the process. So you wrote the offer, you've worked through all your due diligence, you've come to the end of your 2-week condition period. One of 2 things will happen. You either sign a waiver that says, all right, I'm approved. I'm happy with this inspection and all of the little finagling that happened on the back end, maybe during that inspection. And you are satisfied with everything that you want to know about this house, and you sign a waiver. Once that waiver is signed and sent to the office, that house is sold. She comes off the market. You are legally bound to purchase this house now, and it is basically a done deal until you go to the lawyers. So that's that. The second part is you can sign something called a non-waiver. A non-waiver will essentially end that contract. If you were not able to get financing, if you were not able to come to any sort of agreement on some inspection issues that popped up, things in that regard, You would sign a non-waiver and you would say, I tried my best to do this due diligence, but it didn't work out. I'm so sorry. You sign a non-waiver. It's very disappointing for all parties involved. Typically, the house goes back on the market. You will typically get your deposit back, or you will get your deposit back, not typically. And that's that. Then you start the house hunting process all over again, potentially a little less enthusiastic and a little more informed. And then you just start again. But let's say you have signed that waiver. You are purchasing this house. Now what is next in the process? You feel like you've done all this work. You signed all the papers. Oh, but you haven't. So the next step in the process is getting a lawyer. So I'm sure your realtor will recommend a lawyer. There's probably many in your area. Now your real estate agent and their office is responsible for taking all of this paperwork that has been going back and forth for the last few weeks, putting it all together in a package and sending that to your lawyer. And the seller is doing that as well. So you will need to make an appointment with a lawyer of your choosing. And typically you will go see them up to a week before your possession day. So say your possession day is like the 15th of the month. You might want to be going to see them starting the 7th, and they're going to do all of the legal things. They're the ones that will actually be collecting your deposit. They're going to be going through the contract, making sure all the terms are met, all the conditions are met. So that's usually a meeting that you have with them. My meetings in the past have always been at least an hour or so. You're going to need to bring a piece of ID. You're going to probably need to bring a bank draft with the remainder of your down payment. Your lawyer will explain everything that's needed of you, but keep in mind the process is not quite done yet until you see the lawyers and sign off on everything. Now, the next thing in the process is a walkthrough. Usually in your contract, you will have negotiated a walkthrough anywhere between like 24 and 48 hours before possession. And the point of the walkthrough is to make sure that the seller has fulfilled their obligations and that the property is in the same state it was as when you wrote the original offer. So when you're doing the walkthrough, you're looking to see that any inspection items have been done. You're looking to see that everything is still in good working order, that when the seller moved out, there was no damage. It's just essentially your one last final chance to say like, yes, everything looks good. Perfect. Now, sometimes there can be small hiccups. I won't discuss those right now. It doesn't happen very often. So essentially, it usually goes really well. And you are 24 to 48 hours from getting keys. And now the very last step in what feels like a really long process is your possession day. It is very exciting. So possession day is the day that everything transfers over. The lawyers are working. These lawyers are working. And usually about noon on the day of possession, the agent will get a phone call from the lawyer saying, everything is closed, everything is clear, hand over the new keys. So a lot of people think noon is kind of late. It's pretty standard. Sometimes that can go later. There have been instances where it's, closer to the end of the day if there's some hiccups in the process. So if you are ready to move on possession day, it will be a few hours. So have a nice cup of coffee, have a breakfast, and wait to hear from your realtor. But possession is very exciting. You've made it to the end. You are now a homeowner. And those are all of the steps in the process of when you want to buy a home. So if you had any questions about any of these steps in particular, or if you were thinking about starting your home buying process now, feel free to reach out, and I would love to sit down with you and talk about your needs and your wants and help you make a plan, because putting first things first, having a plan is always the best option.